during this crisis and how business was going. And the more we talked, we kind of came up with an idea of, since we can't have a luncheon, a physical luncheon, we talked about having maybe a group of panelists that could talk to us so far as what's going on. So today we have Scott Dregnick with the EDC, Sean Vickers, one of our own members, and we have John Sebring, so from the Missouri Realtors. So I'm going to turn it over to them. Gwen, I don't have the agenda right in front of me. Did we have the sequence of who was going to start? You have to unmute.
Sorry about that. Rick, Scott's going to start, and then John, and then Sean will be the last.
Perfect. Perfect. And then I think, and again, thanks to our panelists here, they've agreed to take some question and answer at the end. So Scott, let's get started.
Well, good morning. I hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's safe, and it's a crazy time to say the least. And appreciate you letting me participate in this. I'm calling in from an undisclosed location somewhere in Charles County. I'd be happy to raise a couple of points that have been coming up in some task force meetings and some interviews and things, and happy to answer a few questions. But I guess the overall message that we're trying to get out to everybody is it's time to remain calm and small business carry on. Our community has lived through the historic '93 flood. We've lived through deadly tornadoes. We've lived through the Great Recession. We lived through 9/11. We're going to make it through COVID-19. And I believe that because we are working together, and together we're St. Charles County strong. But let me just mention a couple of things that are happening that are probably of concern to whoever's participating with us today. Number one, as of just the other day, over 34,000 SBA Payroll Protection Program loans had been approved for Missouri businesses, and that accounted for more than $6.4 billion in SBA money coming to our community. And some of that money is beginning to flow, and that's a huge amount. That's a huge undertaking. On an annual basis, the SBA might approve a couple of $100 million for Missouri, maybe 320 million, I think, the other year. This is 6.4 billion with a B that they did in just about 2 weeks' time. So that money is flowing. We're already hearing today that people are beginning to get their EIDL loans, the emergency injury disaster loans. So that's out there. Many people yesterday began getting their IRS stimulus payments. And so folks need to check their bank accounts for that. And the $600 federal unemployment bump for those that have been impacted and laid off during this period, that's also beginning to flow this month in Missouri here in St. Charles County. We've been working with a number of businesses to help them get restarted, to get reopened. And specifically, Nike and Zoltec come to mind.
Come here, Nelly.
Lots of workers that come in from St. Louis County, big percentage of their workers, and over there's a more stringent executive stay-at-home order, and so we had to work with them to get permission from folks in St. Louis County, as well as working with the Department of Economic Development to get them the waiver or the notification that they are an essential business. So we have got to start making things again in St. Charles County, in Missouri, and across America. And so if your company thinks it can reopen, if your company maybe took a very strict view of the executive orders, we'd like to chat with you and see if we can get you reopened. That's not going to apply for tattoo parlors. That's not going to apply for massage therapy. That's not going to apply for 200 people that want to hold a banquet somewhere. But if you can keep the social distancing, if you can keep the social gathering requirements and other safety protocols, we need to get businesses up and operating. And just from the EDC side of things, we're taking calls every day, emails every day. Our staff is fielding them, giving information. The business counselors are there through the Missouri Small Business Development Center. Most of our events have turned into online webinars like this particular one as well. But just in the last few weeks, we've had one new tenant move into the EDC incubator. We've had one tenant who's expanded. We just closed 2 SBA loans yesterday. We had another one approved, and we have others in the pipeline. It's a small trickle compared to normal business activity, but the world has not come to an end. This is not the zombie apocalypse, and we're going to get through this. The other thing I'd say real quick, and then I'd be happy to answer some questions. We released a survey last night. You can find it on our webpage. You can find it on our Facebook page. You can find it on our LinkedIn or Twitter account. And basically, we are asking people to join the conversation here in St. Charles County and give us their input. It's just a couple of quick questions, but we're looking at this emergency in terms of responding, reopening, and recovering. And we really want feedback from folks because we're participating as well as coordinating a number of task forces and on phone calls with state leaders, regional leaders. We even had Senator Blunt's office reach out to us for information. So this is the time for folks to speak up and have their voices be heard. Because we've got to get through this together, but we want your input, and that's there. And if you're looking for resources, I know they're available on the St. Charles County Commercial Realtors page, but you can find them at many other locations. The Community Council has great social assistance resources on their page. St. Louis Regional Chamber has a lot of resources, but we've set up a subpage on the EDC at edcscc.com/COVID-19. That subpage has become a clearinghouse for information. Whether you're looking for a job, whether you need help for unemployment, whether you need a business loan, whether you're looking for health and human services guidance, and we even have it translated in Spanish. So we're trying to become a clearinghouse and get information out there to fight the misinformation and to fight the conspiracy theories, as well as folks who just don't know what's going on. But we are going to get through this, and we want everybody to participate. Stay calm, small business carry on.
Hey, that's great. Thanks for the update. I think we're going to try to hold the questions to the end, and this way we can get the panelists all up there. And then, so if you had a question, jot it down, and we'll circle back here after we're done with Sean. So, John, what's happening from Missouri Realtors?
Sure. It's great to see you, Scott. It's good to see you again so soon from our January business conference, and I'm really eager to hear what Sean has to say as well. But it's always good to be with St. Charles Commercial. And just to streamline this, I'm going to go straight to share my screen and just show you a few resources that are available. First, we're pretty excited about the coronavirus guide that we have on our website. So at MissouriRealtor.org, on the home page, you see the red banner at the top, Coronavirus, a Guide for Realtors. But before I go into that, let me just mention that next week, this is my little advertisement, we're going virtual with our April Business Conference. Obviously, this is new for us. This is new for everyone. But the really great thing about our April Business Conference is that all of our output groups and committees will continue to meet at their normal meeting time. You'll be getting more information about this, but if you click on the schedule, our commercial output group meeting will be Thursday at its normal time, 10:45 to noon. I've been working on the commercial output group with several great speakers. We have Dr. Tim Savage from NYU in New York City, who's going to be talking about how the coronavirus is going to accelerate trends in commercial real estate. I read an article that he wrote for the National Association of Industrial and Office Properties, and I was so fascinated by it, I was able to get him to join us for that meeting. We also have two staff from NAR, from the commercial division in Washington, D.C., who will be talking about specific programs that are available to commercial members. So I would encourage you to sign in for a lot of things, but most importantly, the commercial output group meeting. But I also want to point out Emerging Issues Forum, because while we've been sitting here and an all-member email went out, we're calling it a flash survey, and there's a link for residential and there's a link for commercial, and there are specific questions for you as a commercial practitioner to answer for us, and those results will be announced at the Emerging Issues Forum next Thursday. But I also have a great speaker, one of my good friends from the time that I lived in Washington, D.C., Tom Sullivan, who used to be at the SBA. He's now the head of small business for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. He'll be joining us, among other speakers, for the Emerging Issues Forum. But back to the coronavirus page, when you click on that red banner, this is what it leads you to. And I'm just going to hit a couple of things real quick, especially since Sean's about to go into more detail on the SBA loans. But first, real estate is an essential service. Obviously, we all worked hard for this. We were glad that the U.S. Department of Homeland Security recognizes residential and commercial real estate services as essential. So our goal was to get the governor to just accept the Department of Homeland Security's CISA list of essential services, which made things a little easier for us. Your local jurisdiction can certainly go further, but my caution here is that what has been given to us can easily be taken away. So it's important that we not pretend that it's business as usual. I know none of you would ever do this, but there are residential agents out there that are posting on Facebook that they're showing houses and things, and it's just not terribly appropriate. Obviously, as long as you're following any state or local stay-at-home order and not gathering in more than 10 from the statewide order and being 6 feet apart, you could show a property. But we need to be very careful about this. So if you have any questions, I would encourage you to read that, or the guidance that we have right under this, the guidance for realtors regarding the Stay Home Missouri order. The new forms that we've had, and this is something that I've talked to Rick Stokes about, the new forms that our forms committee has put together work for residential or commercial. So if you have a current listing contract or a current sales contract, or you're working on a new one, whether it's commercial or residential, we would encourage you to look at these 4 new forms that have been created and we have approved. The release and hold harmless agreement may be something that you'd be even more interested in. And then we have a showing flyer that you could put on the door outside of any commercial listing that you have. So I would encourage you to click on those and find out more. It's interesting how, last year, you'll remember if you were with us at Capitol Conference, we had our talking points brochure, and the #1 issue was remote online notary. We had already been working on that this session as well. It was our #1 priority. And then something like COVID-19 pops up and you realize an issue that we were working on is even more important now. So the Missouri legislature has not been in session, but the governor did issue an executive order that allows for remote online notarization. We update this constantly. We have been meeting with the Secretary of State. And so currently we have this temporary order in the state of Missouri. You can click on the Secretary of State's website here and see who the approved vendors are. Again, we update sections of this website every single day, sometimes more than once a day. So you can get that. If you were already a notary, it's even easier for you to go to this website and sign up to be a remote online notary. So I would encourage you to do that. And there are other closing resources available there. And then I'll just point this out, but not go into great detail, especially since Sean's about to, or at least Sean, I think, on the PPP. But if you have applied for unemployment benefits as an independent contractor in Missouri, you're probably a little frustrated. You got a denial notice. The 50 state programs that operate individually on unemployment are not used to having applications from independent contractors. So this is new, and it's something the CARES Act created through a temporary program. So if you step back and put yourself in the shoes of the Missouri Department of Labor, in our case, they received 104,000 unemployment benefits applications last week. That's more than they would normally have in a year. It's the most they've ever had, ever. So in addition to getting the most ever, at the same time, they're trying to create this new program that they're forced to do under the CARES Act while getting new direction from the U.S. Department of Labor. It's just been a difficult process, but as of yesterday morning, the Missouri Department of Labor announced that they are accepting applications for unemployment benefits from independent contractors as of yesterday. They won't likely be able to process those claims until early next week at the earliest, but for those eligible, the benefits will be retroactive to March 29th. So I would encourage you to follow these 3 easy steps that we have here on the screen. Again, this was updated yesterday because of the new information from the Missouri Department of Labor. And basics on applying for unemployment. That's not me typing, by the way. I know we're hearing someone type, but that's not me. And then the link to the Missouri Department of Labor website here so that you can apply for those unemployment benefits now. And then I'm not going to say much more about the Paycheck Protection Program and SBA other than we do update this every day as well. Sean's going to go into more detail. It's been a little bit frustrating because of changes that came out late last week on Friday night. But the one thing that's probably unique to us here is that we do have a link to the National Association of Realtors Q&A, which is really good on the SBA program. So I would encourage you to look at that. And then the last thing I'll say is that I'm asked a zillion questions every day, and we just continue to add resources because we want this coronavirus resource page to be sort of a one-stop shop for Missouri Realtors. So I get questions from our members who are property managers. And so we add links that are helpful to them. And we're not recreating the wheel in many cases. We're linking to our industry partners, our national affiliates, CCIM, and others. So all of these links are here, and we even link to St. Charles Realtors. We gave the opportunity for any of our local boards to allow us to include the links here. So again, this can be a one-stop shop. Finally, I would say go to the NAR commercial real estate coronavirus page, and Mark can send you, or Gwen can send you the link to this. We link to it as well, but there are a lot of things there. A lot of times our members, especially commercial members, think that something like Right Tools Right Now, which NAR did during the last downturn, and it provides discounted or free resources. A lot of times people think that's just for residential, but it's not. There are commercial partners there as well. One that I would point out, if you need telemedicine, sign up for NAR's telehealth service, which you can get 2 months free telehealth. And that's a benefit that's being offered right now. But there's also transactional guidance, affiliate resources, like I mentioned, CCIM, IRM, SIOR, and others. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and take a breath.
Wow, John, that was very informative. So what I'd like to do is, I understand Scott and John may have to run early. So I'm gonna, Sean, and I apologize to do this to you. Does anyone have any questions before John or Sean have to jump off?
I'm unmuting everyone to speak. Let me ask Rick, there are a couple of questions that were typed in, and if you have questions, anybody else has questions, please type them or raise your hand and I will unmute you. But the first question was by Steve Denny regarding unemployment, processing claims. That's been answered. But Brenda Lauder had a question. I don't know, Scott, if you can answer this or if this would be a question for Sean. What time frame should we accommodate for SB 7A approval when making offers?
What time frame should we accommodate for 7As if making offers? You mean if somebody comes to a realtor and they're working on a 7A?
Right, right.
Well, right now, things are taking a little longer with the SBA because they're focused on trying to get all of the resource flow that's out there. But if you've got a tenant right now and they have an existing loan that was current as of April, and we even had one that closed because they wanted to take advantage of it. Right now, 6 months of payments are being made from the SBA for those 504 loans and for those 7A loans. So if you have property and it's being paid through a 7A or a tenant that's using a 7A or a 504, if they were current as of April 1st, the SBA is making their payments for the next 6 months. Does that answer the question, or am I missing the intent?
Brenda, if you want to add to that, type any questions. I will find you. I will unmute you right now if you have anything else, Brenda, to add to that.
I don't know if you can hear me, and I just typed it.
Yeah.
No, I am actually making an offer on a lease, and we're going to go SB 7A. What time frame should I put that we will be ready with that 7A?
Gotcha. Let me have you reach out to Mark DiLiberto over at our office. Just call 636. Actually, let me give you Mark's direct phone number. And if you need to email me, you've got my email. We chat all the time. Mark's direct phone number is 636-229-5279. 229-5279. He'll be able to give you the latest skinny on SBA stuff. We just traded some emails while this is going on. But he'll be able to tell you exactly how quickly or how slowly things are going because of the recovery that's underway.
Thank you.
Here's
Yes,
a
ma'am.
question, for John. We understand the Missouri legislature is going back into session on 4/27. Any knowledge about what's going to be taken up at that point?
Well, one of the things we're pushing hard for is them to finally fix the Wayfair tax issue. We think action needs to be taken. We're one of the last remaining states on that. With all of the decrease in brick and mortar sales and the increase in online, this is going to have a devastating impact on local government budgets, potholes, police, parks, public works, that kind of thing. So we're hoping that the legislature will finally pick up on that issue. And we're also asking for local, regional, state, and national action on eviction issues. We've got to balance the needs of landlords and property owners with individual residential clients as well as business clients that are all kind of stuck in the situation where revenues are not flowing as well or as quickly as everybody would like. But the last thing we want is suddenly a lot of folks turned out of their homes, out of their apartments and condos, or businesses thrown out that are simply waiting on money to come from the SBA, the IRS, or some other resource program.
And I would say the legislature came back recently to do the supplemental. That mostly had to do with the fact that we were getting $5+ billion from the federal government, and they needed to deal with that at the state level. The next thing, the only thing that they actually have to do is pass a budget. So we know that they will do that. Beyond that, it's a little sensitive right now. You won't be seeing a call for action from us or probably most anyone else. As Scott said, a lot of these discussions are happening behind the scenes, and hopefully something that the legislature can do just from a consensus perspective that they know is good for the economy. But the thought of any industry doing calls for action and specifically lobbying on their pet issue or something is not going to be well received right now because of the sensitivity of the timing. So, you know, I talked to Sam, our lobbyist of 52 years, yesterday, and that's basically what he said. Of course, one member of the legislature, at least one member, has coronavirus, one lobbyist has coronavirus, and there's not a whole lot of interest in coming back for a great length of time. Though the governor said in one of his press conferences this week that he would like to see the legislature come back and handle some of these important issues. He believes their work is extremely essential.
One other question on here is from Steve Denny about inspections and recordings. Now here in St. Charles County, our understanding is Lake St. Louis Fire District just restarted their inspection program this week, so they're back in business. And our recordings are happening here in the St. Louis area. But you hearing anything outstate, John, or around the state about recorders' offices?
I get a spreadsheet from Sam from, I don't know if it's from the Land Title Association, and I can send that to you, that has a listing of every recording office in the state and what their status is. I honestly haven't had a chance to look at that very closely, but I will send that to you so that you have it. It's an internal document, but so you might just look at your own surrounding area and see what's happening. I would also say we have a link on our website to the Land Title Association, and they have something very similar on their website. So you can see what's happening around, actually the US American Land Title Association shows all 50 states and jurisdictions within those states. By the way, I'm going to stay on to hear Sean so we can defer any other questions out of deference to him.
I don't see any hands raised. Any other questions for Scott? If not, Rick, you want to take it away?
Yeah, so Scott, thank you so much for your participation and the great. So with no further ado, I'll turn it over to Sean.
All right, bear with me, everybody. I'm not the greatest with these Zoom meetings. I'm going to try to share my screen here to give everybody, hopefully everybody can see this presentation. All right. So I'm honored to be a panelist with Scott and John. Thank you for the invitation to do this. I will kind of give an update here on some of these lending programs that are available to folks. You know, as of today, a lot of this information is probably stale. I put this together this week, but as we all know, this is an ever-changing world, and a lot of these things are changing on a daily basis. So bear with me if there's been information that you've received as of yesterday that may be different here, but I try to be most up to date as possible. So 3 programs here: economic injury, disaster loans, EIDL, Sba Debt Relief, and then the most important and most popular, the Paycheck Protection Program loans. As I go through here, the first one, economic disaster loans. This has been out there. This is an SBA government loan program that's been out there for many years. They opened this up to businesses that were impacted due to the COVID-19 virus. It's a maximum of $2 million loan. It has an interest rate of 3.75%, 30-year term. Applicants can receive an emergency $10,000 advance. These are eligible to small businesses that have less than 500 employees, sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed, as well as non-for-profits. And what I mean by no double dipping, that means that a lot of people have applied for this loan and have not received their funds, and they wonder why. It's because they are trying to encourage people to go to the Paycheck Protection Program loans. So those applicants that had applied and not received their funds, that is why, because they don't want you to have both. So a lot of those have been delayed as a result of people applying for both programs. The Sba Debt Relief, what this is, I think Scott touched on this briefly. The SBA came out with existing and any new loans that are made between now and I believe the end of the year for 7A, 504, and micro loans. They were going to make payments for 6 months on all of those loans. The borrower doesn't have to do anything at all. The SBA will work directly with the lenders to get those payments made. In addition to that, any existing service disaster loans are deferred, payments are deferred through the end of the year. And then, but as these payments are deferred, the interest will actually continue to accrue on all these loans. So you don't have to do anything for 6 months on them if you have one. You just have to be prepared to make your payments starting in the 7th month and set up your payment plans accordingly to get those done. So the one I wanted to touch on the most here today is the Paycheck Protection Program. This was part of the CARES Act. Many of us know about the $349 billion loan program that was implemented by the SBA. This is designed to keep workers on payroll. The SBA will provide a portion of the loan or maybe the full amount of the loan to be forgiven. Borrowers are encouraged to contact their existing lenders that are actually 7A approved lenders to process these loans. Lenders began taking applications on April 3rd, and the idea was for the program to run all the way through the end of June, June 30th of 2020. As of this morning, you know, I've been told and saw actually that the program is now out of money currently. They are in talks of trying to raise some additional funds for it. I think there's around $350 billion that's being discussed through Congress. So hopefully that will continue and go through. I would still encourage folks, if you are interested in applying for this or want to encourage any of your clients to apply for this, to contact their lender and still go through the application process, because I'm fairly confident some funds in some form of this program will continue. So just a quick on the loan terms of the PPP loans. Many of you probably have gotten one or know clients that have received one. The maximum amount of the loan is $10 million. It's a 2-year term. The interest rate is 1%. I know it's been talked about before in the past that it was 4% originally. I know the final rate was 1% on these. You don't have to make a payment for 6 months. There's no personal guarantee, and there is no collateral on these loans, and the loans are 100% guaranteed by the SBA. So eligibility for these loans, the small business, these are eligible are small businesses with fewer than 500 employees. One thing to point out, I know a lot of hotels and other franchises have more than 500 employees. I think what they did with that is they dumbed it down to just the local level, so the local restaurant or the local hotel, as long as they did not have more than 500 employees at that individual location, would qualify. 501c3s are eligible. Sole proprietors, independent contractors, self-employed, that all came out on Friday last week, their eligibility. And the one test is that you must be in operations as of February 15th of 2020. So you can't be a defunct entity to try to apply for this. The loan amounts, how they're calculated, for small businesses and 501c3s, they take their aggregate payroll costs for the last 12 months. They subtract any salaries for an individual over 100,000. So you can only qualify up to an individual for 100,000. Anything over that is ineligible. You divide that total by 12, and then that comes up to be your average monthly payroll. You multiply it by 2.5, and that determines your loan amount. If you had a EIDL loan, what they're wanting to do is refinance that with the PPP loan. So they'll add that to that, but then they'll subtract, if you did receive a $10,000 grant, they will subtract that from the total, because that is a grant that you don't have to pay back. So that would be your total loan amount for a small business and 501c3. Many of you are probably more interested in the sole proprietor, independent contractor, and self-employed portion of this program. I processed many of these this week for individuals in realtors, both commercial and residential. The information that you have to apply and how you calculate it, it's based off of your IRS Form 1040 and your Schedule C, line 31, net profit. If you don't have a net profit, you don't qualify. So there's no, at this point, there's nothing to be added back for depreciation or interest payments or non-cash flow items. It has to be net profit, and it's capped at $100,000. So you take the $100,000, and then if you do have any employees that you reported on your Schedule C, you can do the same calculation on the total payroll cost for those employees, of course, less any individual over 100,000. You take those items, you add them together, you divide by 12, and then you multiply by 2.5. And then the same thing applies with the EIDL loans. And that will determine how much of a loan you're eligible for. How to apply for a PPP loan. So I would recommend, if you have a relationship with your lender, that is your best resource to go to initially. We are getting numerous applicants, requesting these loans, and in order to process them efficiently, it helps if we already have an existing relationship, just because we have some information already on those borrowers. We have deposit accounts. We know their borrowing history, so it's just quicker to go through your existing lender. The lender does have to be a 7A approved lender. What they will do is they'll provide you with a PPP loan application. You fill that application out. You provide your payroll cost records for 12 months. Sole proprietors, like I mentioned, you provide your 1040 Schedule C. You also have to provide some proof that you were in business as of February 15th. That can be bank statements, 1099 records that you received some income as of February 15th, anything like that. And then some lenders may be requiring additional documentation. I would encourage, if your lender's asking for things, don't say that you've heard that you don't have to provide this stuff, because in order for your lender to get that processed quickly and efficiently, I would just provide it. So that could include tax returns. It could include your corporation documents. And it also could include your IRS forms 941 and 940. So just listen to your lender. Also be careful on who you trust, and who provides you with information on these programs, just because there's a lot of information out there. So just trust the source when you get stuff on that. There is a loan forgiveness component to these. So if you've received a loan already or in the process of receiving it, I will say one quick thing. If you did apply for it and you got a notice from your lender that you have been approved through the SBA, but you have not gotten your funds yet, don't be worried. Your funds are earmarked from the program, and they have 10 days from the date that you get your loan approved to close that loan. So just, if you have clients that are concerned because they haven't closed yet, but they were told they were approved, those funds are earmarked from the 349 billion. So they are good. If you haven't got your approval yet, then you have to wait till more money is allocated. So the forgiveness portion of this, you have 75% of loan proceeds must be used on payroll costs. 25% can be used on other eligible costs like mortgage, interest, rent, and utilities. You must maintain the same amount of employees that you had as of February 15th of 2020. And then for sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed, what you'll do is you'll take your 1040 Schedule C, and you'll divide that by 52 weeks in a year and multiply it by 8. Because the test period is an 8-week test period from the time that you get your loan funds. So that's how they are calculating all the forgiveness portions of the loan. You would provide that information to your lender. Your lender will then work directly with the SBA to get that portion of your loan forgiven, and that would be a payment directly from the SBA to your lender. Any portion that's not forgiven will need to be repaid over the remaining term of your loan. After that 6-month no payment deferment runs out, you'd have to repay the remaining balance of your loan at 1% interest over that remaining roughly 18 months term. So, be prepared that you can do that in the event that you don't get any loan forgiveness, or if a portion of your loan is not forgiven. So I just in wrapping up here, check out, there's a couple links here that I included. These are links directly to the final rule with the SBA, mainly to the sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed. This gives you information on who's eligible, how to calculate your loan, how to get your forgiveness. A lot of good information there. And then the last one is information to all the funding programs underneath the 3 that I spoke to today. So that's it. So thank you, everybody, for letting me present.
Hey, Rick, we've got a couple questions for Sean on here.
Yeah, go ahead.
The question was, I understand what you said, that the PPP program is out of time.
I'm sorry, did you say I couldn't hear you, Mark. I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit.
Paycheck protection program is out of money at the current time.
Yes, yeah. At the current time, we are not able to submit any applications because it's currently out of money.
And is a commercial checking account required for the PPP program?
It's not required, but it's encouraged that you have an existing commercial relationship at your lender.
All right, and then the question come up really for John, or what is NAR doing as far as getting this program expanded, or efforts to do that?
The National Association of Realtors has sent a letter to the leadership of the U.S. House and the leadership of the U.S. Senate. The lobbyists are actually going to the Hill and talking to members of Congress about adding more funding to this. It's the top priority. There's nothing bigger than this right now for NAR.
All righty. Rick, are you anything to add? Or? Rick, that's
I
all
have
we
a question real quick, if I could, for Sean, only because others may have this question. On the Zoom meeting that I was on, that I jumped off of to join this one, a realtor from another part of the state asked me if the SBA is out of money and they're not taking new applications, is there a place they can go to put in their confirmation number that they got when they did apply previously to see what the status is? And I was going to look that up, and I hadn't had a chance yet, and thought your answer might benefit people on this call.
I do not know of a resource that you can go to put in your application number or your loan number. I would say that I would work with your lender to kind of communicate that through. So if you've got a question as far as your closing and availability of your funds, I would just connect with your lender to kind of get that confirmed.
This was actually through the EIDL, which didn't go through the lender, it went through SBA.
Yeah, I've been told that any loan that was not funded through the EIDL at this point won't be funded. So if you have not received your, that's what I've read and heard. So, that's just, I don't have anything to do with the administration of that program. That's all through the SBA.
So Mark and Rick, further to what's happening with Congress, the goal right now is for everyone to agree on something so that Congress doesn't have to come back physically like they did a couple of weeks ago. Members of Congress had to fly in from all over the country, which is what is being preached they don't want to happen. So they're trying to come up with a plan that House and Senate leaders agree to and pass via unanimous consent so that members of Congress don't have to be there in person. So that's the current hope and plan.
Okay, sounds good. Rick, I don't see any other questions. Does anybody else want to raise their hand for a question for anybody? Not seeing any.
Okay. Well, listen, all I can say is thank you to all of our panelists. And thanks to everyone who's joined in on the call. I think we've gotten a lot of great information here and resources and a couple of links that we can go to. I think as all the panelists have said, things are changing on a daily basis. And, it's kind of crazy out there. So with that, I'll call this meeting to a close. I liked what Scott said, and let's get this, our small business and independent contractors working. So thank you all very much.
Stay safe, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Great job.